Hello and welcome to the Vital Red Pill. Today we are going to check out the very first verifiable occurrence of the phrase, if voting could change anything, it would be made illegal. It was written by a man who was, from my point of view, way ahead of his time. The text was published on the 24th of September 1976 in the Letter from Readers section of the Lowell Sun on page 7. Link in the description.
The voice of the people. Voting is dishonest and fraudulent. Croydon. Perhaps the people are grasping reality in spite of indoctrination we have been subjected to via our schools, media, government, and others who wish to maintain the status quo, i.e. the few controlling and living at the expense of the many. This country was founded on the principle of individual rights to live, liberty, and property, which are inherent in the nature of man. Yet today most laws, regulations and taxes are clear violations of the rights of the individual in favor of the group, society, government, the collective. Is not forced busing the result of forced schooling? Isn't it a violation of individual rights? If the government derives its powers from the governed, how can it be legal for the government to do things that are illegal for the individual? Consider gambling. Will the state soon start selling drugs to raise needed revenue? Why not? Some states sell or control and tax alcohol. This is for the good of the people, right? Has it ever dawned on the editors that the attitude of the 70 million projected non-voters may be very consistent with the reality that the concept of voting and electing representatives is basically dishonest and fraudulent? If voting could change anything, it would be made illegal. There's no way any politician can legally represent anyone because he was elected on a secret ballot by a small percentage of voters. He then claims to represent the people who voted against him, and even those who wisely chose to not participate in such a criminal activity. You say those 70 million stay-at-homes will forfeit their right to complain about the way they are governed. Being enlightened, they are perhaps saying they do not want any part of a system where coercion is the form of taxation, which is taking of property allegedly being protected, and war, which is nothing less than murder, is the sole means of its existence. If you vote and are in the majority, you violate the rights of the minority, or vice versa. The implication is might makes right. If you vote, you are implicitly agreeing to play the coercion game and must accept the results. If a person doesn't vote or otherwise participate in the aggression of government, they are on a very sound, consistent moral grounds, as they attempt to live in peace and liberty. Which are you for? Individual freedom or the tyranny of a dictator? The majority or so-called law? I think it is time the media made it explicit clear where they stand. We cannot be part slave and free at the same time. It is amazing how many humans will accept almost anything and even adjust to living in change if told to do so. By its very nature, politics is corrupt. Let us not be beguiled into going along with the establishment. Let us show them we are aware and demand our freedom by not voting or otherwise sanctioning aggression. The coercive society can only exist with the sanctioning of us, its victims. If we want liberty and peace, we must not accept and shun responsibility by voting while politicians plunder us. Robert S. Borden, MD, North Main Street.
Wow, what a great read. And as relevant today as it was in 1976. There are two things I would like to add. The first is a clarification for all non-Americans on forced busing, or maybe it was before your time. Disclaimer, as a non-US citizen, this is just my personal very limited point of view I am going to present to you. Forced busing or segregation busing is a term that was coined in the year 1974. As far as I know, the whole thing started in Boston, just a few kilometers away from the place where Robert S. Borden lived. Back then, in general, blacks and whites in the US had their own separate schools. One day somebody complained that black schools received less funding than the other schools did. The Supreme Court decided that was not fair and something had to be done about it. So they did the most logical thing. They increased the funding of the underfunded schools. Nah, just kidding. That would be just way too simple. What they really did was to forcefully let the children from poor black schools to be sent to previously mostly white schools. And some of these schools were in other part of the city. Because nothing solves a problem as creating an even bigger problem. Just check out some pictures of that time. Almost looks like a civil war broke out or something. To give credit where credit is due, the authorities managed to divert a lot of tensions from themselves onto their different racial groups, the case here being blacks against whites. Just imagine if the people would have not thrown rocks on school buses, but instead had the people truly responsible for the whole mess. Things might have come out quite differently. But in this timeline, the ones in power played their divide and conquer card pretty well, and everybody fell for it, and forced busing is now a thing. The second thing I wanted to address was an idea that was also stated in the letter, that all legitimate governmental power is derived from the people. The basic idea that the people gave some of their rights over to the government, because the government can do some things better than an individual could. But the question is, can one delegate a right to somebody else that one does not possess in the first place? If I don't have the right to take away your property, then how can I delegate this right to the taxman/government? How can I legitimately give away somebody the right to take away your property if you don't have that right in the first place? If you want to see Bernie Sanders answer this and similar questions, check out the YouTube channel of Jan Helfeld. Especially these few videos, they are very good.
Let me ask you this. Is all legitimate governmental power derived from the people?
Yep.
The question is, did the individual citizens ever have the right to initiate physical force against other individual citizens?
I would expect that would be against the law. People do not have the right to go around beating up.
That would
innocent
be
people.
wrong, right?
That would be
Okay,
wrong.
so if they never had that right, could they have delegated it to the government?
I guess they have.
But didn't you say before
Okay,
that they
you're
didn't have the right to do that?
Okay. I've got to get going. Thank you very much. What is
Well,
your background? Well, I've got to go vote right now.
Okay, I understand that you have to go vote.
Can you just ask me a question?
Can-
while we're on the camera?
Just truly revealing that these politicians just cannot comprehend that contradiction. To use the metaphor of the emperor's new clothes. Even though they can see the naked skin of the emperor, they still insist that he is wearing clothes. As always, don't blindly follow others, but find your own life's path and take action. Write a Red Pill out.
which is taking of property already being